So that should be a nice, easy win for Stockfish. They're going to learn not to sign up for another tournament like this unless they're using cheats.
The world is being taken over by cheaters. Multiple games in the last few years have been rocked by scandals at the highest levels. But the problem goes much further than that. It's estimated that a large portion of the art you see in museums is fake, and computer tools have allowed people to beat nearly anyone at a lot of online games. But the biggest problem of all is in sports, with all the time, money, and dedication that's involved. PED use appears to be rampant, and the methods of cheating with it are always evolving and seem to be slightly ahead of the methods of detection, creating a situation where honest athletes are almost forced to cut corners to have a chance of winning, and even athletes that come out clean are assumed to just be better at avoiding detection. As a result, people have asked, why don't we just allow it?
6 of the 9 that we know about were on the juice. That wasn't a real race.
What if 9 of 9 were? If they all could take, with the doctor's care.
What if I'm competing and I don't want to take the stuff?
So you shouldn't get LASIK surgery?
Let every athlete use PEDs, and then their talent will break the tie, and we get to see the limits of human ability. They've even started to try it. Could that work? Is it the future? Let's talk about it. On the surface, the idea of solving rampant lying by having everyone do it and letting everyone know about it makes sense. Like we've talked about, pretty much everyone lies about their height. We tend to measure ourselves in shoes and then round up. This is the most exaggerating we can do without being obvious. But because everyone does it, no one can benefit by stretching the truth themselves, and we all adjust to it and thus still get a realistic idea of how tall someone is based on what they say. So, in theory, maybe we can just do the same with PEDs. But I don't think we actually could. Not without defeating the purpose of sports in general, and eventually making people stop watching. Because first, as we've said, sports and games let people prove their abilities without having to take the same risks that they would in real survival situations. But, for that to work, people have to really prove what they can do. Otherwise, if we allow people to cheat, or use means other than their talent and virtue to win, society is worse off. And as a result, the people playing those sports and games have a conflict of interest. If they cheat, they win and get higher status. But everyone else in the group now has the wrong leader, partner, or role model. That's why we value sportsmanship, encouraging the people involved in the games to be honest and accept the results, and why we hate cheaters. So I think that makes it clear why we don't want individual people in a contest to use PEDs. But now, what if everyone used them instead? That would actually also be a problem. Because first and foremost, at the top levels, PEDs are very expensive.
I think I came to a calculation of like $15,000 a year or per month, depending on how much you're running. Now, some guys spend $75,000 on their drug bill.
That in and of itself creates a massive barrier to entry. You may be able to get a sponsorship from your government that funds those things, but even then, that means that wealthier nations have an advantage in competition, and that means that the competition stops being a sport, where athletic talent, skill, and virtue determines the winner, and becomes an auction, where whoever has the most money is the victor. And I don't think any of us want to watch someone just outspend another person who is more talented or works harder. After all, being rich is not the same as being virtuous, and that wouldn't help society. On top of that, even if you can afford designer drugs and treatments, PEDs can also be very dangerous, especially at the high levels, where athletes push everything to the maximum. They're not like LASIK surgery or a normal procedure. They can destroy your heart, your blood, and a lot of other things. And when it's a situation where the athlete who takes the most has the biggest edge, you turn the sport into something else again. A game of chicken, where the person who is the most willing to hurt themselves is the winner. Now, it might be thrilling to see people take risks like that, but when people go to the furthest level with it,
the last round, the 14th round, Ali is dead. He has too much pain. He'd rather die than let somebody beat him.
That risk will become actual harm, and that's no good. Self-destruction isn't something we enjoy or admire, and on top of that, it defeats the whole purpose of sports in its own way, because instead of letting capable people show their abilities, you're injuring those people and taking away their capability. Now, having said that, there is the question of what happens on the actual field or court, besides the money or the danger, because more impressive athletes might make the sport more entertaining to watch. And to some degree, that's true. People with bigger muscles, more aggression, or faster times and more impressive results do make us naturally become more interested in seeing them, which is one reason why superheroes are so popular. But that interest can actually only go so far, because one of the reasons we watch those people is that they inspire us, making us want to be like them, and by watching them closely, we can learn how to do it. But in this case, that process can't complete, because our normal bodies aren't capable of doing what the people we see are doing, even if we practice hard. So we're not actually learning about what we can do in the world, unless we have a lot of money to spend and don't care about our health, which I think doesn't apply to most people. And this is true in games as well, and even AI. Now that we have computers that can outperform humans, allowing people to use those computers to do a task that is supposed to involve human ability will simply favor the person who is willing to ignore that and use the computer the most.
How did you cheat?
Well, you use a chess engine to give you the moves.
Or who can buy the best computer. And thus, even in that, you end up rewarding the richest or most dishonest and reckless person. And so, with all of this in mind, we're in a difficult situation. Letting everyone use PEDs in sports is very likely not going to solve the problems that their existence has created. And the arms race in all competitions between people who use these things and people who detect them is likely going to have to continue. Though it may help to keep samples and test them retroactively as we develop new methods, so at least people who compete fairly can eventually get rewarded. Even though that, of course, isn't ideal. There is, however, one ray of hope. If somehow sports and games could be cleaned up, they would still be just as entertaining in the long term, even with less impressive results, because people will adjust to what they see. And that means that real human achievements will eventually be special again. Thanks for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll be back soon.